The evening rush had just begun at the Golden Leaf, one of the most popular restaurants downtown. The warm glow of pendant lights cast a honey-colored shine on polished wooden tables as waitstaff moved efficiently between them. Among them was Lily Chen, a 24-year-old with bright eyes and a determined spirit. She'd been on her feet since the morning shift started, but you wouldn't know it from her warm smile as she welcomed each new table of guests. Tonight was especially busy. A tech conference had brought business people from all over the country to town, and many had chosen the Golden Leaf for dinner. Lily checked her watch. She had another 4 hours before she could head home, shower, and dive into her medical textbooks. The double shifts were exhausting, but they helped pay for her tuition. One more year, she kept telling herself. Just one more year of juggling restaurant work and medical studies. Lily, table 12 just got seated, called out Mike, the floor manager. Big spender by the looks of it. Maybe you'll get lucky with the tip. He winked as he handed her a stack of fresh menus. Lily nodded, quickly refilled her water pitcher and headed to table 12, which sat in the center of the restaurant, a spot usually reserved for VIP guests. As she approached, she saw a man in his 40s with salt and pepper hair, wearing an expensive charcoal suit that probably cost more than 3 months of her rent. He was frowning at his phone, his fingers tapping impatiently on the screen. "Good evening, sir. Welcome to the Golden Leaf. My name is Lily, and I'll be taking care of you tonight." She smiled warmly, placing a menu in front of him. The man didn't look up. "Sparkling water, no ice, and don't bother with the special speech." "I know what I want." Lily maintained her professional demeanor despite his curtness. "Of course, sir. I'll be right back with your water." As she turned to leave, she noticed 3 other businessmen heading toward the table. The host was leading them over, all carrying briefcases and looking equally serious. A business dinner then, she thought. Those could be tricky, high expectations and lots of pressure. When she returned with the sparkling water, all 4 men were seated and deep in conversation about market projections and quarterly reports. She recognized the industry talk from her father, who had worked as an accountant before retiring last year. "Gentlemen, may I pour some water for everyone?" Lily asked. The first man, clearly the leader of the group, waved his hand dismissively. "Just pour and leave the pitcher. We're in the middle of something." Lily nodded and began carefully filling each glass. The men continued their conversation as if she weren't there, their voices growing more animated as they discussed someone named Peterson, who had apparently made a costly mistake. "That idiot cost us the Henderson account," said the leader. "Robert Barrington, according to the reservation." His voice was sharp with controlled anger. 10 years we've had that client, and now they're gone because he couldn't follow simple instructions. Lily moved carefully around the table, trying to be unobtrusive. The restaurant was growing more crowded, and a server from another section squeezed past just as she was pouring water for Barrington. Her elbow was bumped slightly, causing a small splash of water to spill onto the white tablecloth near Barrington's hand. It was barely noticeable, just a few drops, but his reaction was immediate. "What the?" Barrington jerked his hand away, even though the water hadn't touched him. "Are you serious right now?" "I'm so sorry, sir," Lily said quickly, reaching for her napkin. "It was just a small accident." "An accident?" His voice rose, cutting through the ambient restaurant noise. Several nearby diners turned to look. "Do you know how much this watch costs?" "More than you'll make in a year." Lily felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment as she dabbed at the small wet spot on the tablecloth. "Sir, I apologize. Your watch didn't get wet, but I can get you a new tablecloth if you'd prefer." "What I'd prefer," Barrington said coldly, "is competent service." "Is that too much to ask at these prices?" One of his colleagues chuckled nervously. "Come on, Rob, it's just a little water." But Barrington was not to be calmed. "No, Tom, it's not just water. It's about standards. I worked too hard to get where I am to accept sloppy service." He looked directly at Lily for the first time. "Where's your manager? I want someone else to serve our table." The restaurant had gone oddly quiet. Lily could feel dozens of eyes on her back as she stood there, napkin in hand, her professional smile frozen in place. In her 3 years working at the Golden Leaf, she'd dealt with difficult customers before, but something about Barrington's cold disdain cut deeper than the usual complaints. "Of course, sir." "I'll get the manager right away," she managed to say. Her voice steadied despite the knot forming in her throat. As she turned to leave, Barrington added loudly enough for nearby tables to hear, "And maybe find a job you're actually qualified for." This clearly isn't it. The word stung like a slap. Lily walked briskly toward the kitchen, blinking rapidly to hold back tears that threatened to fall. She wouldn't cry. Not here, not now, not because of someone like him. Mike had already noticed the commotion and met her halfway. "What happened?" he asked quietly. Spilled a tiny bit of water. "Table 12 wants a new server," she whispered, her voice tight. Mike squeezed her shoulder supportively. "Take a minute if you need it. I'll handle them." In the staff area behind the kitchen, Lily took several deep breaths. Her hands trembled slightly as she poured herself a glass of water. 3 other servers were on break and they looked up with concern. "You okay, Lily?" asked Diane, a motherly woman who had been working at the restaurant since it opened. "Just a difficult customer," Lily said, attempting a smile. "Nothing new. Was it that guy in the fancy suit?" "Table 12?" asked Carlos, who was refilling salt shakers. He was rude to the valet, too. Nearly threw his keys at the poor kid. Lily nodded. "He wants a different server because I spilled a few drops of water." Diane rolled her eyes. "Some people think money buys them the right to treat others like dirt. Don't let him get to you, honey." "I won't," Lily said, straightening her uniform. "I've got a bigger goal than this job. One day I'll be Dr. Chen, and tonight will just be a story I tell about why I always treat everyone with respect, no matter their job." Her colleagues smiled at her resilience, but as Lily headed back out to her other tables, she couldn't help feeling the sting of humiliation. Her parents had raised her to believe that all honest work had dignity, and she took pride in doing her job well. Her father had worked 2 jobs to put her older brother through college, and now she was doing the same for herself, determined to become the first doctor in her family. Back on the floor, Lily noticed Mike speaking with Barrington, whose face showed no remorse. In fact, he seemed to be complaining further, gesturing emphatically while Mike nodded professionally. Other diners were watching the scene with uncomfortable expressions, some whispering to each other. Lily focused on her remaining tables, determined not to let one rude customer ruin her evening or affect her service to others. She delivered a birthday dessert to a delighted 10-year-old, recommended the perfect wine pairing for an anniversary couple, and cheerfully helped a family with their order. But every time she passed near table 12, now being served by Carlos, she felt Barrington's dismissive glance. An hour later, as Lily was describing the dessert options to a friendly elderly couple, she felt a tap on her shoulder. It was Grace, the restaurant owner, an elegant woman in her 60s who rarely appeared on the floor during service hours. "Lily, do you have a moment?" Grace asked, her expression unreadable. Lily's stomach tightened with anxiety. Had Barrington complained to the owner? Was her job in jeopardy because of a few drops of water? "Of course," she said, excusing herself from her table. Grace led her to a quiet corner near the entrance. "Mike told me what happened with the customer at table 12, she began. "I'm really sorry about the spill," Lily started, but Grace held up her hand. "Don't apologize. I saw the security footage when Mike told me what happened. There was barely any water spilled, and that man's reaction was completely inappropriate." Lily blinked in surprise. "Oh, I wanted to check if you're okay," Grace continued, her voice gentle. "No one deserves to be spoken to that way, especially not over something so trivial." The unexpected kindness nearly broke through Lily's professional composure. "I'm fine," she said, though her voice wavered slightly. "It's not the first difficult customer I've dealt with." Grace nodded. "You've always handled yourself with dignity, Lily. That's one of the reasons you're one of our best servers." She paused. "How are your medical school applications going?" The change of subject caught Lily off guard. "Good, actually. I have interviews at 3 schools next month." "That's wonderful." Grace smiled warmly. "When you're a doctor someday, remember moments like these. They teach us about humanity in ways textbooks never can." As Grace walked away, Lily felt a renewed sense of purpose. One rude customer couldn't diminish her worth or derail her dreams. She straightened her shoulders and returned to her tables, unaware that her encounter with Robert Barrington was far from over, and that the next chapter would unfold in a way neither of them could possibly imagine. Lily tried to focus on her other tables, but her mind kept drifting back to the humiliating encounter with Robert Barrington. She had just finished taking an order from a family of 4 when she noticed something odd about table 12. As Carlos served their main courses, Barrington kept glancing in her direction. Not with the earlier contempt, but with a puzzled expression, as if trying to place her. She turned away quickly, not wanting to make eye contact. The last thing she needed was another confrontation. But as she entered their orders into the computer system, a memory stirred in the back of her mind. Something about Barrington seemed vaguely familiar, though she couldn't quite place where she might have seen him before. "You're handling this like a champ," Diane said, sidling up next to her at the computer terminal. "I'd have accidentally spilled an entire pitcher on that jerk." Lily smiled weakly. "Thanks, but I need this job too much for revenge fantasies." "Well, I overheard his colleagues giving him grief about how he treated you, if that helps," Diane said. "Seems like even they think he crossed a line." That did make Lily feel slightly better. She finished entering the orders and picked up fresh bread for her new table. As she passed near the bar, she overheard bits of Barrington's conversation with his colleagues. "The Anderson merger is practically a done deal," he was saying, his voice carrying that distinctive confidence of someone used to being listened to. "We just need to iron out the final details next week." Something about his voice triggered a flash of recognition in Lily. Not from the restaurant. She would have remembered a customer like him. This was from somewhere else, somewhere unexpected. The memory hit her suddenly. The hospital. 2 years ago, during her volunteer hours at City Memorial, a man had been rushed in with severe abdominal pain that turned out to be a ruptured appendix with complications. He'd been terrified, alone, and Lily had stayed with him, holding his hand and talking to him calmly while they waited for the surgeon, her mother, to arrive. Could it really be the same man? Lily stole another glance at Barrington. Without the pallor of pain and fear, and dressed in expensive clothes rather than a hospital gown, he looked different. But those distinctive eyebrows and the cleft in his chin, it had to be him. The irony was almost too much. This man who had treated her like she was beneath him, had once gripped her hand like a lifeline, vulnerable and grateful for her presence. He had thanked her repeatedly that day, had even called her an angel when the anesthesia began to take effect. Lily's phone vibrated in her pocket. Normally, she never checked it during a shift, but with her mother on call at the hospital, she always made an exception. She stepped into the staff corridor and pulled it out. It wasn't her mother, but a text from her roommate. "How's your shift? Still on for study group tomorrow?" As she put her phone away, she noticed the framed photo on the wall, one taken at the hospital fundraiser last year. It showed her mother receiving an award for surgical excellence with Lily standing proudly beside her. The Golden Leaf had been a major donor to the hospital's new emergency wing, which explained why the photo hung here. A plan began to form in Lily's mind. Not for revenge, but for recognition. A chance to remind Barrington that people deserve basic respect, no matter what job they're doing. When she returned to the dining room, Mike was waving her over urgently. "Table 20 needs their check, and table 15 is ready to order dessert," he said. "Can you handle it? Carlos is swamped." "Of course." Lily nodded, putting thoughts of Barrington aside for the moment. The next hour passed in a blur of activity. A large party arrived without a reservation. A child spilled orange juice all over the floor, and the kitchen fell behind on orders due to a small mishap with the grill. Through it all, Lily moved with practiced efficiency, soothing impatient customers and maintaining her warm smile despite the chaos. She was delivering coffee to an elderly couple when she overheard raised voices from table 12 again. Barrington was berating Carlos now, complaining that his steak was overcooked. "I asked for medium rare." "This is practically well done," he snapped, pushing his plate away. "Is it really so difficult to get a simple order right?" Carlos apologized profusely, offering to have the kitchen prepare a new steak immediately. But Barrington wasn't satisfied. "First the incompetent girl, now this," he said loudly. "Does anyone in this place know what they're doing?" That was the final straw. Lily had been willing to let the earlier insult go, but watching him treat Carlos, one of the kindest, most hard-working people she knew, with the same disrespect was too much. She finished with her table and approached Mike, who was watching the situation with concern. "I need to speak with him," she said quietly. Mike looked surprised. "Are you sure?" "I can handle it." "I'm sure," Lily said with unexpected confidence. "Trust me on this." Mike hesitated, then nodded. "All right, but I'll be nearby if you need backup." Lily took a deep breath and walked purposefully toward table 12. Barrington was still complaining to his colleagues, who looked increasingly uncomfortable with his behavior. "Excuse me, Mr. Barrington," she said, her voice steady. He looked up, surprised to see her. What do you want? I requested a different server. I understand, sir, Lily said. I just wanted to ask if you remember City Memorial Hospital about 2 years ago. The question clearly caught him off guard. His expression shifted from annoyance to confusion. What? What are you talking about? You had emergency surgery for a ruptured appendix, Lily continued, keeping her voice low enough that only their table could hear. There were complications. You were in a lot of pain. Barrington's face changed as recognition began to dawn. The color drained slightly from his cheeks. How do you know about that? He asked, his voice losing its edge. I was the volunteer who sat with you before surgery, Lily said. You were alone and scared. You held my hand so tightly the nurse had to ask you to let go when they wheeled you to the operating room. The other men at the table had gone quiet, watching this unexpected exchange with fascination. That was you? Barrington asked, studying her face more carefully now. Yes, Lily said simply. And the surgeon who operated on you for 6 hours and saved your life? That was my mother, Dr. Helena Chen. One of Barrington's colleagues let out a low whistle. Dr. Chen? The one who pioneered that new surgical technique? She's your mother? Lily nodded but kept her eyes on Barrington, whose expression had transformed completely. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that looked remarkably like shame. I didn't recognize you, he said quietly. Why would you? Lily replied. I'm just a waitress, right? Someone not worth remembering or treating with basic respect. The words hung in the air between them. Around them, the restaurant continued its evening rhythm, but at table 12, time seemed suspended. I'm not here to embarrass you, Lily continued. I just wanted to remind you that everyone has a story. That server you just berated has been working here for 12 years to put his kids through college. The host who took your coat is a published poet. And I'm working double shifts to pay for medical school, following in my mother's footsteps. Barrington looked genuinely stunned. His colleagues were watching him, waiting to see how he would respond. I remember now, he said finally. You told me about your dog, Max, and about wanting to be a doctor someday. You stayed past your shift to keep me company. Lily was surprised he remembered those details. Yes, Barrington cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. I behaved poorly tonight. There's no excuse for it. No, there isn't, Lily agreed. But there's always room to do better next time. She turned to leave, feeling a strange mixture of satisfaction and nervousness. She'd never confronted anyone like that before, especially not a customer. She'd probably get in trouble, maybe even lose her job, but somehow she couldn't bring herself to regret it. Wait, Barrington called after her. Lily paused and turned back. I'd like to apologize to your colleague as well, he said, gesturing to Carlos, who was watching cautiously from a distance. And I'd prefer if you would be our server for the remainder of our meal. If you're willing. Their eyes met, and in that moment of connection something shifted. Not forgiveness exactly. His behavior couldn't be erased that easily. But an acknowledgement. A small step toward redemption. I can do that, Lily said with a nod. As she walked away to inform Mike of the unexpected development, she could hear Barrington's colleagues giving him a hard time. Man, Rob, you really stepped in at this time, one of them was saying. Shut up, Tom, Barrington replied, but without malice. Lily smiled to herself. The evening had taken an unexpected turn, and she had a feeling the story wasn't over yet. Not by a long shot. The atmosphere at table 12 had transformed completely. When Lily returned to take their dessert orders, Robert Barrington looked at her with new eyes, respectful, perhaps even a little ashamed. His colleagues seemed relieved by the change, the tension from earlier dissolving into a more pleasant dinner conversation. I recommend the chocolate soufflé, Lily said with professional warmth. Our pastry chef uses a special dark chocolate imported from Belgium. That sounds excellent, said Tom, the friendliest of Barrington's colleagues. I'll have that. The others ordered tiramisu and crème brûlée while Barrington asked for just coffee. As Lily collected their dinner plates, she noticed Barrington watching her thoughtfully. Your mother, he said suddenly as she was about to leave. Dr. Chen, how is she doing? The personal question surprised Lily. She's well, thank you. Still at City Memorial. Still saving lives, Barrington nodded. Please tell her Robert Barrington says hello. And thank you. Again. I will, Lily promised, touched by his sincerity. In the kitchen, Carlos caught her eye as she put in the dessert orders. "What kind of magic did you work on that guy?" "He actually apologized to me." "Like genuinely apologized," Lily smiled. "Let's just say we had met before under very different circumstances." "Well, whatever you did, nice job," Carlos said, bumping her shoulder companionably. "I've never seen someone do a complete 180 like that." As Lily arranged the desserts on her tray, she pondered the strange turns life could take. 2 years ago, she had comforted a frightened stranger facing emergency surgery. Tonight, that same man had humiliated her in front of a restaurant full of people, only to now treat her with newfound respect. People were complicated, full of contradictions and surprises. When she returned to table 12 with their desserts, the men were discussing business again, but the tone was lighter. Barrington glanced up as she approached. "Perfect timing," he said, making space on the table for the dessert plates. "We were just discussing our foundation work." Lily set down each dessert with care. "Foundation work? Rob here runs the Barrington Foundation," Tom explained between bites of souffle. "Education grants, medical research funding, that sort of thing. Among other interests," Barrington added modestly. "Though we're always looking for new initiatives." Something changed in his expression as he said this, a thoughtful look crossing his face. Lily sensed he wanted to say more but was holding back. "Enjoy your desserts, gentlemen," she said professionally. "I'll be back to check on you shortly." The rest of their meal proceeded smoothly. When it came time for the bill, Barrington insisted on handling it himself. Lily brought the check folder and placed it discreetly on the table. "Thank you for your service this evening," Barrington said, his voice genuine, so different from the cold, dismissive tone he'd used earlier. "You're welcome. Mr. Barrington, thank you for dining with us." She moved on to her other tables, aware that the dynamic of the entire evening had shifted. What had started as one of her worst experiences as a server had somehow transformed into something meaningful, even redemptive. Half an hour later, Barrington's party was preparing to leave. As Lily passed by to thank them for coming, Barrington held up a hand to stop her. "Ms. Chen, could I have a word in private before we go?" he asked. Lily hesitated, glancing at Mike, who nodded his approval from across the room. "Of course," she said. "We can step over here." She led him to a small alcove near the coat check, away from the busy dining area but still within sight of other staff. Up close, she could see the fatigue lines around his eyes, a hint of vulnerability beneath the polished exterior. "I wanted to apologize again," Barrington began, "for my behavior earlier. It was inexcusable." "Thank you," Lily said simply. "I appreciate that." "You said you're in medical school?" he asked. "Starting my second year," she confirmed. "It's why I work double shifts here." "Tuition isn't cheap," Barrington nodded thoughtfully. "No, it certainly isn't." He paused, seeming to wrestle with something internally. "I don't normally do this, but I'd like to give you my card. My personal number's on the back." He handed her a sleek business card. "Robert Barrington, CEO, Barrington Technologies," it read with contact information embossed in silver. "I'm not looking for anything inappropriate," he clarified quickly, seeing her hesitation. "But I'd like to discuss something that might interest you." "About the foundation Tom mentioned." "Oh," Lily said, relieved and curious. "What about it?" "We fund various educational initiatives, including medical school scholarships," Barrington explained. "We're particularly interested in supporting students who have shown exceptional compassion and dedication to patient care." "Students like you," Lily's eyes widened. "Mr. Barrington, Please call me Robert," he interrupted gently. "And don't say anything now. Think about it. Call me next week if you're interested in discussing possibilities." "I don't know what to say," Lily admitted, her mind racing with the implications. "You don't need to say anything," Barrington Robert replied. "Just know that sometimes life gives us second chances to make things right. Tonight was mine." With that, he rejoined his colleagues, who were waiting by the door. As they left, Lily stood motionless in the alcove, his business card in her hand, emotion swirling through her. "Earth to Lily." Diane's voice broke through her thoughts. "You okay?" "What did Mr. Bigshot want?" Lily tucked the card into her pocket. "Nothing," she said. "Just wanted to apologize again." "Well, he left you something else too," Diane said with a knowing smile. "Mike just showed me the tip he left. Let's just say you won't have to worry about next month's rent." Lily hurried to the server station where Mike was processing the payment. His eyes widened when he saw her. "Lily, have you seen this?" he asked, pointing to the receipt. Barrington had left a $2,000 tip on a $450 bill. At the bottom of the receipt, he had written, "Thank you for the reminder about what truly matters. RB." "Oh my God," Lily whispered, her hand flying to her mouth. "What did you say to that guy?" Mike asked, amazed. "I've never seen anything like this in 15 years of restaurant work. I just reminded him of something he'd forgotten," Lily said softly. By the time her shift ended at midnight, word had spread throughout the restaurant about the extraordinary tip and the mysterious connection between Lily and the formerly rude customer. As she hung up her apron and gathered her things, she felt the weight of Barrington's business card in her pocket. Outside, the night air was cool and refreshing after the heat of the kitchen. Lily took a deep breath, letting the events of the evening settle in her mind. Her feet ached from the long shift, but her spirit felt lighter somehow. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "Just finished emergency surgery. Patient will make full recovery." "How was your night?" Lily smiled to herself, thinking of all that had happened and the strange twists of fate that had brought her and Robert Barrington together again. "You won't believe it," she typed back. "Remember that appendix case from 2 years ago? The scared businessman?" Her mother replied almost immediately, "Of course. Complicated case, why?" As Lily walked toward the bus stop, she pondered how to explain everything that had happened. Life was unpredictable that way. You never knew when a past kindness might circle back to you, or when a difficult moment might open the door to unexpected opportunity. She fingered the business card in her pocket, wondering what would come of it. A scholarship would change everything for her, easing the constant financial pressure and allowing her to focus more on her studies. But even more valuable was the reminder that people could change, that a single interaction could transform someone's perspective. The bus approached, its headlights cutting through the darkness. As Lily boarded, she decided she would indeed call Robert Barrington next week. Not just for what his foundation might offer her, but because their reconnection felt somehow important, a story that wasn't finished yet. She settled into a seat, gazing out at the city lights. Tomorrow would bring another long day of classes, followed by another shift at the restaurant. But tonight had shown her that sometimes, when you stand up for your dignity with grace and remind others of their humanity, unexpected doors can open. The bus pulled away from the curb, carrying Lily home and toward whatever new chapter awaited. A week passed before Lily finally gathered the courage to call Robert Barrington. Between her medical school classes, lab work, and restaurant shifts, she'd barely had time to think, but his business card remained on her nightstand, a persistent reminder of that extraordinary evening. She sat on the edge of her bed early Tuesday morning, the only 30 minutes of quiet she could find in her packed schedule. Sunlight streamed through her small apartment window as she dialed the number written in neat handwriting on the back of the card. He answered on the third ring. "Robert Barrington speaking." "Hello, Mr. Barrington, this is Lily Chen from the Golden Leaf restaurant." There was a moment of silence, then his voice warmed. "Lily, I was hoping you'd call. And please, it's Robert." "Robert," she repeated, the name feeling strange on her tongue after thinking of him as that rude customer, and then Mr. Barrington for so long. "I'm glad you reached out," he said. "Are you free for lunch today?" "I'd like to discuss that opportunity I mentioned." Lily checked her schedule. She had a 2-hour break between her morning biochemistry lecture and afternoon lab. "I could meet at 12:30, she offered. "But only for about an hour. I have lab at 2, Ming." "Perfect," Robert replied. "There's a cafe near City Hospital called Brewster's. Would that work? I imagine it's not too far from your medical school." "I know it well," Lily said. It was actually where many medical students grabbed coffee between classes. "Excellent. I'll see you there at 12:30. After hanging up, Lily felt a flutter of nerves. Was this really happening? A week ago, this man had humiliated her in front of a restaurant full of people, and now she was meeting him to discuss a potential scholarship. Life took strange turns sometimes. Her morning lecture on cardiac pathology passed in a blur, her mind drifting repeatedly to the upcoming meeting. When class ended, she hurried to Brewster's, arriving 10 minutes early. To her surprise, Robert was already there, sitting at a corner table with a leather portfolio in front of him. He stood as she approached. "Lily, thank you for coming." Gone was the arrogant businessman who had berated her at the restaurant. This Robert Barrington seemed different, humble almost. He wore a casual button-down shirt rather than the expensive suit from before, though Lily suspected even his casual clothes cost more than her monthly rent. "Can I get you something?" he asked, gesturing to the counter. "Their turkey avocado sandwich is quite good." "That sounds perfect, thank you," Lily said, setting down her heavy backpack filled with textbooks. When Robert returned with their food, Lily noticed several students glancing curiously in their direction. It wasn't every day a medical student had lunch with someone who looked like he belonged in the business district downtown. "So," Robert began after they'd settled in, "I want to be direct about why I asked to meet you. After our encounter last week, I did some research on the cost of medical education. The numbers are staggering," Lily nodded. "The average debt for new doctors is over $200,000, some graduate owing twice that." "Precisely," Robert said. "And that's for students who don't have to work full-time while studying. Students like you who are balancing both face even greater challenges." He opened his portfolio and removed several glossy brochures. "The Barrington Foundation has supported various educational initiatives over the years, but we've never had a specific program for medical students. I'd like to change that." Lily picked up one of the brochures which featured smiling students in graduation caps. "What exactly are you proposing?" "A scholarship program," Robert explained, his eyes lighting up with unexpected passion. "Fully funded medical education for students who demonstrate exceptional empathy and commitment to patient care. Students who understand that medicine is about people, not just science." "Like the volunteer work at City Hospital," Lily said, beginning to understand. "Exactly like that," Robert agreed. "Technical skill is essential for a doctor, of course, but so is human connection. What you did for me that day, sitting with me, calming me down when I was terrified, that mattered just as much as my mother's surgical expertise." Lily was surprised by his candor. "You remember a lot about that day. Near-death experiences tend to stick with you," he said with a wry smile. "My appendix had ruptured 12 hours before I got to the hospital. The infection was spreading. If your mother hadn't operated when she did—" He left the sentence unfinished, but Lily understood. She'd seen enough similar cases during her hospital rotations. "So what role do you see me playing in this scholarship program?" Lily asked, curious about where this was heading. Robert leaned forward. "Two roles, actually. First, I'd like you to be our inaugural recipient. The scholarship would cover your remaining tuition, books, and provide a monthly stipend, so you don't have to work those double shifts at the restaurant." Lily nearly choked on her sandwich. "That's incredibly generous, but—" Robert held up a hand. "Before you say anything, this isn't charity, and it's certainly not me trying to ease my conscience after behaving badly. This is an investment in a future doctor who has already demonstrated the qualities we want to support." "And the second role?" Lily asked, trying to process everything. "We need someone to help design the program. Selection criteria, application process, mentorship components. Someone who understands both the financial challenges and the importance of compassionate care. I'm hoping you might be interested in helping shape this initiative from the ground up." Lily set down her sandwich, her mind racing. "This is a lot to take in." "Of course," Robert nodded. "I don't expect an answer today. Think about it, discuss it with your family." "Why me, really?" Lily asked, looking directly into his eyes. "There are thousands of struggling medical students with volunteer experience." Robert was quiet for a moment. "The truth? What happened at the restaurant showed me something I needed to see. I've become disconnected. Success, money, power, they created a bubble around me. I forgot what it was like to be on the other side." He absent-mindedly stirred his coffee. "When you reminded me of our first meeting when I was vulnerable and scared and you showed me kindness anyway, it broke through that bubble. You reminded me of why I started the foundation in the first place, to make a difference in people's lives, not just write checks for tax deductions." His honesty caught Lily off guard. This didn't sound like the arrogant man who had demanded a new server over a few drops of water. "I appreciate your candor," she said finally, "and I'm genuinely interested in the scholarship program, both as a potential recipient and as someone who could help design it." Robert's face brightened. "Wonderful. Why don't you take these materials, look them over, and we can meet again next week. Bring your ideas, your concerns, everything." As they wrapped up lunch, Lily glanced at her watch. "I need to head to lab, but thank you for this opportunity. It's unexpected, to say the least." Life's most meaningful turns often are, Robert replied. As they stood to leave, he added, "Oh, and please give my regards to your mother. Her skill saved my life, but your compassion made that terrifying day bearable. I never properly thanked either of you." Walking to her lab afterward, Lily felt as though she were dreaming. The weight of her financial worries, constant companions for so long, seemed suddenly lighter. Could this really be happening? That evening at the Golden Leaf, everything felt different. Lily moved between tables with the same professional courtesy as always, but her mind was elsewhere, imagining a future where she could focus fully on becoming the doctor she'd always wanted to be. "You seem different tonight," Diane commented as they restocked napkins together. "Got a hot date or something?" Lily laughed. "No, nothing like that, just thinking about the future. Well, whatever it is. It looks good on you," Diane said with a warm smile. When Lily got home that night, she called her mother, who was just finishing her hospital shift. "Mom, you'll never believe what happened," she began, and then told the whole story, from Robert's rudeness at the restaurant to his scholarship proposal. "It sounds too good to be true," her mother said cautiously when Lily finished. "Are you sure there are no strings attached?" "It's not like that," Lily assured her. "He seems genuinely committed to this program, and he specifically mentioned how grateful he was for your surgical skill." Her mother was quiet for a moment. "I remember that case. Severe peritonitis. He was lucky to survive." She paused again. "If you feel good about this opportunity, then I support you. Just be careful and read all the fine print." "I will," Lily promised. "Actually, he asked me to thank you again for saving his life." "I was just doing my job," her mother replied, the standard response she always gave when thanked. "Just like you were doing yours, both at the hospital then and at the restaurant now." After they hung up, Lily sat on her small balcony looking out at the city lights. She thought about how a single moment, her spilling water at the restaurant, had set off a chain of events that might change her entire future. But it wasn't really about that moment, she realized. It was about connections, how the kindness she had shown a frightened stranger 2 years ago had come full circle in the most unexpected way. And about how sometimes when people are reminded of their own humanity, they can surprise you. She took out the Barrington Foundation brochures and began reading. Ideas already forming about how to structure a scholarship program that would support students like her, those with the heart for medicine but not always the financial means to pursue it. Tomorrow she would call Robert and tell him yes. Yes to the scholarship. Yes to helping design the program. Yes to this unexpected new chapter that had opened before her. Sometimes life's hardest moments led to the most beautiful opportunities. You just had to be brave enough to walk through the door when it opened. 6 months had passed since that fateful night at the Golden Leaf, and Lily's life had transformed in ways she could never have imagined. Today she stood nervously in front of the mirror in her new apartment, a modest but comfortable one-bedroom much closer to the medical school campus. Gone were the days of hour-long bus commutes between classes, work, and home. "You look perfect," her mother said, adjusting the collar on Lily's blazer, professional but approachable. "I still can't believe this is happening," Lily said, smoothing down the front of her outfit. "What if I mess up my speech?" Her mother squeezed her shoulder. "You won't. Just speak from the heart like you always do." Today marked the official launch of the Barrington Foundation's Medical Compassion Scholarship Program. After months of planning meetings, legal consultations, and curriculum development, the program was finally ready to accept its first full class of recipients. As the inaugural scholar and program co-designer, Lily would be giving a short speech at the launch ceremony. "We should get going," her mother said, checking her watch. "Your father's already waiting in the car." The drive to Barrington Technologies headquarters took 20 minutes. The gleaming glass and steel building in the heart of downtown housed not only Robert's company, but also the foundation offices on the top floor. As they pulled into the visitor parking area, Lily spotted familiar faces arriving. Mike and Grace from the Golden Leaf, several of her professors from medical school, and even Carlos with his wife and children. "Quite a turnout," her father commented, looking impressed. Inside the building's atrium, a space had been transformed with rows of chairs facing a small stage. Poster-sized photos lined the walls, medical students volunteering, doctors with patients, scenes from hospitals around the city. In the center of it all was a large sign. Barrington Foundation Medical Compassion Scholarship Program, investing in empathetic healthcare. Robert spotted them immediately and came over, shaking hands warmly with Lily's parents. "Dr. Chen, it's an honor to finally meet you properly," he said to Lily's mother. "Your daughter speaks very highly of you." "Likewise," her mother replied with a smile. "Though I must say this is quite different from our first indirect connection." Robert laughed, patting his side where his appendix scar would be. "Indeed it is." A much happier occasion, he turned to Lily. "Ready for your big moment?" Lily took a deep breath. "As ready as I'll ever be." "You'll be wonderful," Robert assured her. "Just remember why we're doing this. It's not about me or even you. It's about all the future doctors who will be able to focus on becoming the best physicians they can be, instead of worrying about how to pay their bills." Lily nodded, feeling calmer. Over the past months, she'd come to see a side of Robert Barrington that few people knew existed. Behind the successful CEO was a man genuinely committed to making a difference, once he'd been reminded of what truly mattered. 10 minutes until we start," a young woman with a clipboard informed Robert. "We're just waiting for the dean to arrive." As Robert excused himself to handle last-minute details, Lily made her way around the room, greeting friends and colleagues. Carlos gave her a big hug. "Look at you," he said proudly. "From serving plates to changing the medical education system. Always knew you were destined for big things." "I couldn't have done it without the Golden Leaf family," Lily told him sincerely, especially after that night. Grace, the restaurant owner, joined them. "Speaking of which, business has been booming since word got out about our connection to the scholarship program. Robert's been bringing potential donors in for dinner almost weekly. And he tips well every time," Carlos added with a wink. A hush fell over the crowd as the dean of the medical school arrived. Accompanied by several important-looking people in suits, Robert guided them to the front row, then stepped up to the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today for what I believe is the beginning of something truly special," he began, his voice confident but warm. "6 months ago, I had an experience that changed my perspective on what matters in life and in healthcare." Lily listened as Robert briefly recounted their encounter at the restaurant, tactfully omitting his own bad behavior but emphasizing the moment of recognition. How a simple act of compassion from years before had created a lasting connection. "And so today, with tremendous pride, we launched the Medical Compassion Scholarship Program," Robert continued. "This initiative will provide full funding for medical students who demonstrate exceptional empathy and commitment to patient-centered care. But more than financial support, it offers mentorship, specialized training in compassionate communication, and ongoing professional development." He gestured to the side of the stage. "None of this would have been possible without our program architect and inaugural scholar, a young woman whose kindness to a frightened patient and dignity in the face of, let's call it, challenging circumstances, inspired this entire initiative. Please welcome medical student Lily Chen." The applause was warm as Lily took her place at the podium. Looking out at the friendly faces, her nervousness faded. This was her moment, yes, but it was also something much bigger than herself. "Thank you, Robert," she began. "And thank you all for being here today. 6 months ago, I was a medical student working double shifts at a restaurant to make ends meet. Today I stand before you as proof that sometimes life takes unexpected turns for the better." She paused, making eye contact with different people in the audience. Healthcare isn't just about medical knowledge, though that's certainly important. It's about seeing people at their most vulnerable and treating them with dignity and compassion. Sometimes that means sitting with someone who's scared. Sometimes it means remembering that the person serving your dinner might have dreams and struggles you know nothing about. A murmur of appreciation rippled through the crowd. This scholarship program is designed to support students who understand that medicine is fundamentally about human connection. Students who might otherwise have to choose between studying and working, between pursuing excellence and making rent. Lily went on to explain the program details, how it would fully fund 10 medical students per year, with preference given to those who had demonstrated exceptional empathy in healthcare settings, how recipients would participate in specialized training and community service, how the program would track outcomes not just in academic performance, but in patient satisfaction and well-being. "In closing," she said, I want to thank the person who made all this possible, not just through his financial support, but through his willingness to be reminded of what truly matters in life. Robert Barrington could have walked away from our unexpected reunion with nothing more than embarrassment. Instead, he chose to create something meaningful that will benefit countless patients and doctors for years to come. The applause was thunderous as Robert rejoined her on stage, along with the dean and the first cohort of scholarship recipients, 5 diverse students with impressive backgrounds in patient advocacy and volunteer work. As photographs were taken and congratulations exchanged, Lily found herself standing next to Robert in a quiet moment. "How does it feel?" he asked softly. "Seeing it all come together?" "Surreal," Lily admitted. 6 months ago I was worried about making rent. Now I'm helping shape the future of medical education." Robert smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "You know what I remember most about that day in the hospital? Not the pain or the fear, though those were certainly memorable. It was something you said to me while we were waiting for your mother to arrive." Lily looked at him curiously. "What did I say?" "I was panicking about a business meeting I was missing," Robert recalled. "And you said sometimes life interrupts our plans to remind us what really matters. At the time, I thought it was just something nice people say. Now I realize how profound it actually is." Before Lily could respond, they were pulled back into the celebration. More handshakes, more photos, more congratulations. But his words stayed with her throughout the day. Later that evening, after the ceremony and the reception that followed, Lily found herself back at the Golden Leaf. Not as a server this time, but as a guest of honor at a small celebration dinner with her parents, Robert, and the restaurant staff who had become like family. As wine was poured and toast after toast was made to her success, Lily looked around the table at the unlikely gathering, her parents beaming with pride, Robert laughing with Carlos about some kitchen mishap, Grace sharing medical stories with the dean. All of these connections, these intertwined lives, stemming from a moment 2 years ago when she had simply shown kindness to a frightened stranger. "A penny for your thoughts," her mother said, noticing her quiet reflection. "I was just thinking about how we never really know the impact of our actions," Lily replied. "How the smallest kindness can come back to us in ways we never expected." Across the table, Robert raised his glass slightly in her direction, having overheard her words. The gesture acknowledged the truth they both understood, that sometimes the most meaningful connections in life come from the most unexpected places. That humility and compassion can transform not just individual lives, but entire communities. And that sometimes when life interrupts our plans, it's offering us something far better than what we had imagined for ourselves. As the evening wrapped up and goodbyes were said, Lily stepped outside into the cool night air. The future stretched before her. Medical school without the constant financial strain, a role in shaping compassionate healthcare education, and the knowledge that she had helped create something that would benefit others long after she received her medical degree. All because she had once been kind to a stranger. And because that stranger, even at his worst moment, had been willing to remember and learn.